Welcome to this week's Nebraska Soybean Board Weekly Roundup. It's being brought to you by the Nebraska soybean farmers and their checkoff. I'm Susan Littlefield. I have been on vacation this whole week, so learning what's going on in the markets is being just as exciting for me as it is for our folks that are listening and viewing this week. We've got two great guys that are going to be joining us as we're going to hit corn, the soybeans, the wheat. We're talking cotton. We're also going to take a look at what's been happening with basis, harvest continues, and what's been happening in South America. And then, of course, everybody's water cooler talk has been the weather.
It may be small, but this little bean fuels a lot of power. It powers a food industry as a top source of protein. It's a fuel that powers diesel engines with fewer emissions. It powers a state economy and bottom lines. And it powers the rest of the world as a top Nebraska export. Yeah, it may be small, but we're finding more ways for this little bean to power Nebraska.
Welcome back as we continue now. We are, of course, talking with two great guys. They're going to give us an update. You can see on camera here, PJ Conradt joined us and John Pfanner. Both of them are with Tredas. And as we look at what's been happening with this markets, another interesting week. And PJ, kind of want to start out with you. Talk about what you see as some of the key factors in this corn market this week.
You know, it's been obviously up week versus last week. Dees corn 21 finished up 11 at 538, and then 22 crop finished up 8 at 531. So it's always good to see that positivity in the corn market. As far as what's driving it, you know, we got some really good ethanol profitability. Outside of that, I do think yields are very good, and I'd like to hear John's down in Alabama, and so I haven't heard a lot of yields out of there, and he has clients up in Northeast Missouri too. So I know Nebraska's good, but I'd like to know what things are doing down there too.
Yeah, John, what are you seeing in Alabama?
Well, we make up a pretty small portion of the acreage nationwide. In fact, I don't even think Alabama is actually surveyed. But just in general, the Southeast United States and the Mid-South, which include Tennessee and Kentucky, we're having extremely good yields this year on corn. We're probably just a little bit past the halfway point being done. Some guys are finished up, and then, like I said, most guys are on the downward slide. But, PJ, one thing I wanted to touch on, we were talking about, you were mentioning the market moving upward and, just good ethanol margins, but also, seasonally, which, is very relevant to Tredas, we do start seeing some sort of seasonal recovery, most years in this time frame. So, the recovery, there may not be a real definitive answer as far as, margins or demand. It's just, the seasonal recovery and it seems to be a little more accelerated than normal, but which is also good, right? Because this is the seasonal, we get some demand going, get some Chinese buying or, some more Mexico buying. This again should be very positive for corn.
One thing technically I'd like to say on corn too, talking about seasonal retracements and all of that, really if you date back to late July, we haven't left really this 550 to 497 type range, especially on a closing basis. So moving forward, I think you really look at what happens from here. Do we have a chance? If we do break 550, there's probably a lot of upside there. 575 I think is a resistance level on the way up. God willing, we see a 6 handle, but on the flip side of that, if we do break 497, the floodgates are open to the downside. So if you are having good yields, I've been trying to encourage guys to at least protect themselves or get some more sold, just so that way we don't miss a very good margin time frame to have here.
PJ, you're talking a little bit about the ethanol market. I wondered what type of competition are we seeing between natural gas and ethanol at this point?
Well, it's been all over the place, right? Ethanol's obviously been the driver, and there are some big margins there. The nat gas world, the whole thing's kind of getting crazy. And you talk energies, and this will kind of lead us into beans as well. Beans had a massive up day on, I believe, Wednesday, up 20 on beans, and we took that all back Thursday. So kind of net changes on the week. No beans finished up a penny at 12.19, and the 22 beans finished down a penny at 12.22. So all that kind of factored in. You think energies push that up because they were very strong Wednesday. Where do we go from here is the $1 million question, especially on the soybeans. But to John's point, seasonally, we should try to retrace back towards that $13 level. But what kind of pressures are we going to see in the meantime, especially with some good bean yields in the core Midwest? But I know they fought with some stuff down south too.
John, what are you seeing when it comes to the soybean market? We don't hear a lot usually about crops to the south, so kind of enlighten us to what we can expect.
Well, this year was setting up to be, I mean, just again for the Southeast in general, probably a record bean crop. There's two time frames that we plant down here, and it's obviously the spring time frame, but that only makes up about 30% of the beans in the Southeast. Most of the beans are actually planted after wheat. And the early beans, what we refer to the ones planted in April, they actually got too much water late, and we're running into some massive damage problems. Field damage of 10 to 30%, which is you can't sell that. Max damage at most processors and everything is 5%. So we're having some issues on that on the early soybeans, but these late soybeans that are just now getting started, they look really good, and so far the quality's holding in there. So we should overall have a good crop, but there are definitely when you got in APH down here, let's just say roughly 40 to 45 bushels the acre, but we were looking at 65 to 75 bushels the acre soybeans that are now, I mean, there's no insurance claim and there's nothing you can do with them. So it's kind of a tough pill to swallow when it was right there, and at the finish line, they stumbled. But overall, it's going to be a really good bean crop in the Southeast and corn as well.
So do you see any change-ups happening as guys start looking towards 2022, knowing the struggles that they had this last growing season?
No, I mean, so when prices are good, and it kind of depends, down here, they can be more flexible because, they got corn, beans, wheat, and cotton. And, over here where we raise soft wheat, soft wheat's a higher yielding wheat than like Kansas City wheat, like hard wheat. And so, you can raise the soybeans behind it down here. And so that's where we may see some shift is with July wheat 22, it was up 20 on the week, up at 757. So, we already got guys that know they were going to plant some wheat. They've already marketed some wheat, but now we might be adding acres, with the uncertainty on dry land corn. We're mainly dry land down here. With the uncertainty on margins right there with, really high input prices, we could see some acreage shifts over to wheat, and then because you'll be able to plant beans behind it and get a second crop. But as far as, these early beans being tough this year, it's not going to change, you guys. If there's guys that they always do 10% or 20% beans planted in April, they're probably going to stick to that. But the only thing I could see changing is, maybe drawing some corn acres out and moving it to wheat. But again, I don't think it'll be significant, at least looking at a snapshot of today's market.
All right. Well, just want to remind folks that today's report's being brought to you by the folks of the Nebraska soybean farmers and their checkoff. PJ, kind of wanted to throw, we talk a little wheat here. Wanted to throw at you. I understand that there was some things going on with Russia, maybe with the export tax. And is that going to be a benefit to us here in the States?
Well, you'd hope so. I mean, definitely you look at the global picture on wheat and we keep drawing down stocks. I think that's really why you saw corn outperform soybeans today. And a lot of that's on the back of wheat. Wheat, Kansas City variety was up 20, up 30 on the week at 774, and that's a nearby D's board. You look at corn, obviously we finished up 11, but we had a good day on Friday, up 6 roughly. So it's kind of a feed grain issue. Yes, we need that from Russia, but also are we getting the worldwide production to get us flush again with wheat? Wheat's a funny animal. When it wants to run hard, it's going to run hard. And if you look at the spring wheat, I don't have the exact number in front of me, but I know it had a 10 in front of it. It's just one of those, that market is what it is. And with the drought up north, it's driving everything. So all the gluten concerns aside, wheat is having its day in the sunshine here, rallying ahead. And obviously, like John said, maybe you see some guys switch over to that. And I do think we're in for an interesting 2022 planting season or pre-planting, just looking solely at the numbers today. And I know John sent out a good email today about the thoughts around the 2022 crop. But sitting here today, if you don't have your fertilizer booked, it's hard to want to go book that at these values, especially when you see the soybean number where it's at, and maybe you go plant that instead.
John, I want to talk a little bit about cotton because it is gaining in popularity, especially when we have our listeners and viewers in Kansas, and we continue to see this crop moving a little bit north. What are you hearing, especially when we look at the prices right now?
So nearby December cotton, it was up a penny on the week to $1.0826. And anytime cotton has been over $1, I mean, it has been, Alabama wrote a song about it. I mean, it's, you get over $1 on cotton and it's the real deal. But the problem is, your equipment for cotton, a new modular roller picker is around $800,000 and inputs are similar to corn price. And so you got to have really good cotton. And then when you have machines that cost that much and they are only usable for one crop, cotton, and that's it, they're not versatile. So if you want to add cotton acres, you've really got to, basically add enough acres to justify another whole machine. So, and, depending on what kind of, what row spacing of cotton you plant, that's 800 to 1,200 acres is roughly where you max a machine out at. So it's a big decision if you want to go significantly more cotton acres. You can't just add 200 or 300 or 400 acres. It's almost got to be 1,000-acre decision. And next December cotton is, I know it's up around 89 or 90 cents. And so being able to, book cotton this far out at those levels is really, really good. Just last year we were as low as 53 cents a pound. And so it is definitely much, much, much more profitable. But again, there's barriers to entry, as far as your flexibility of being able to, move in and out of raising cotton or not. It's not a crop that you can just raise 300 or 400 acres of if it looks good on paper. Where corn and beans, obviously, we're using the same machine, and wheat and rice and a lot of other things. So it's a little different animal, but it looks really good. So it will definitely encourage the guys that have the ability to flex in and out. But again, that's somewhat limited.
Well, as we get ready to wrap this all up, I wanted to talk, PJ, quick about this weather situation. What are we going to see? Is it going to continue to be dry to get this harvest done? And does that cause any concerns when guys start making planting decisions for next year?
I do know here locally in Nebraska, it looks like for a decent chance of the rain here Sunday, and then also back east. I know it's been pretty wet further east in Illinois. As far as planting next year, that's going to be more what we get for some snowfall and also how we start off. As we can tell, there were some dry spots in Iowa on the drought monitor, but there's no dry spots on their yields. So I guess looking forward, let's be excited about that. And hopefully everyone has a quick, safe, and fun harvest, and hopefully have this thing wrapped up to get some candy on Halloween by and large.
There we go. Bets put. Thanks both gentlemen for joining us today. That has been the Nebraska Soybean Board Weekly Market Roundup. I'm Susan Littlefield.